Hello ladies and gentlemen, Nick here, and welcome to my review of Doctor Who Season 16, Story 3, I was about to say 4 for some reason, The Stones of Blood. To me, this is probably the best story of Season 16. It's a very good written story, but I do have a few issues with it, and this mainly comes later on though, so let's jump right into it. The story is a bit more of a gothic horror mystery adventure where featuring druid sacrifices and historical old stones and a mysterious Celtic goddess. The Doctor and Romana land on Earth and they encounter these 9 stones where Professor Amelia Rutford and her friend Vivian Fay are surveying the site. Meanwhile, this other local is conducting druid rituals at the site at night on behalf of a Celtic goddess. However, during part 2, due to a failed attempt to sacrifice the Doctor, thanks to Amelia Rutford's interference, the guy and his, I want to say, girlfriend, I don't know what she is to him, are killed by this stone, this giant stone from one of the sites. It's revealed to be an organ. There's 3 of them. This one falling into the river after the Doctor causes it to run off a cliff by accident. And then there's 2 others that come in and try and attack later on. So someone has got Augie here, and it's this Celtic goddess, whoever she is. But it turns out that this same woman has been on Earth for around 2,000 years. The goddess and at least 3 other women who've owned the site, and now also 1 other person. Vivian Fay turns out to be this villainous character, and she sends Romana to a prison spaceship in hyperspace in a dimension separated from Earth. So the Doctor must try and get her back, whilst Rutford and K9 must defend off against the Augie, though Fay does sabotage the machine for a bit. Whilst also in hyperspace, the Doctor finds Romana and also accidentally unlocks a door where, well, not accidentally, but he releases 2 judgment bots, these computerized justice system creatures, and they are not happy with him breaking the seal, because breaking the seal is punishable by death. And once that happens, these bots kind of take over the story in a way. I mean, I was liking the hyperspeed prison ship and sci-fi stuff that was being explained in the story, and how the Doctor was explaining it to Rutford, and how that was merging with the horror story, Earthbound horror story, gothic horror story. But once these Justice Machine creatures come out of their transport cell, because they're being transported, they're not criminals. They're supposed to be the good guys. So they're just on their they're just having a lift. But once they're out of their cell, in a way, then they kind of take over the story, and this is probably my main problem with the next episode, episode 4. The Doctor and Romana run into Vivian Fay, and then soon the justice system try to have the Doctor executed because it was a crime punishable by death. So the Doctor has to try and have a proper trial, because he finds their one to be he doesn't like the idea of not being there. So he has an actual trial where he tries to find out more about Vivian and who she really is, and what the really problem is. And to be fair, these the justice system creatures are needed to find out about those bits, find out who she really is, what she's done, and to punish her. give her the punishment. Although how she escapes the death penalty and not the Doctor is baffling. However, in order to get to them discovering she is behind a criminal, behind all of this, etc., we need to go through boring trial stuff. This is my one big problem with this story. Episode 4 is mainly dedicated to boring trial stuff, and when that's not happening, then it's K9 and Professor Runford sorting out with the machine after Vivian sabotages it. But again, it's just parts 3 and 4 is just having her wait around waiting for the Augie, and then Romana has to go in. When Romana gets back, they try and find some evidence against Vivian Faye, which is good. But again, the justice system sort of justice robots find the same information out themselves, and maybe even more information. So part 4 is just trial stuff. But unlike other stories like the War Games and the Deadly Assassin, it's not that interesting. It's actually quite dull. And unlike those stories, it takes up the bulk of the episode rather than part of it. Even Trial of the Time Lords, which takes up an entire season, is somehow slightly better. I get that these justice system things are important to the story, and yeah, that's why I'm saying it is necessary. But my goodness, it's boring, this trial sequence. So yeah, I mean, there is some good bits. The Fourth Doctor gets some good lines and bits in, and like how Faye is just trying to completely deny everything, and the Fourth Doctor getting her to when he looks like he's going to be killed, he tries getting her involved, so they can't kill her because she's not guilty in their minds until they reveal who she is. So the Justice Machine says, so they can only stun and knock her out, and therefore they can read their thoughts, which leads them to the reveal. And then after they're done with her, the Doctor then just sends them back to the ship, and the seal of Diplos, which Vivian Faye, aka Cassia of Diplos, as she's revealed to be, turns out to be the third segment of the Key to Time, which is then reunited with the other two segments. The second segment we saw them bringing in at the start of the story. So in the end, The Stones of Blood is a great gothic horror story that merges brilliant sci-fi sci-fi-ness and with some complicated science thrown into the mix. Some really great horror stuff and pretty scary in some places. However, once the Justice Machines get introduced, it becomes a bit silly, and not in the good type of way. It's just, and also trial stuff and all of this justice system thing just feels absolutely boring and dull and tedious until we get to towards the end. So I really liked the story prior to that, and there are some good bits afterwards during the Justice Machines bits and the trial bits, but for the most part it's just dull, boring, takes over the story and doesn't really feel that necessary until the very end, where it does become necessary. So on the whole, I'm going to give The Stones of Blood a 9 out of 10. Yeah, the story was brilliant. It's just that part 4 is so dedicated to that bloody, boring trial stuff that it can't really get any higher. There's also some other slow bits during the other episodes, but again, that's pretty much normal for Classic Who by this point. So, yeah, but God, if that trial stuff had been less of the focus of the episode, then I think we would have gotten a better story. This one could have worked at 3 parts, come to think of it, if it wasn't for that bloody trials stuff. But it's still the best story of the season so far, and might stay that way. But David Fisher, who wrote this is his first story, at least his first televised one. Maybe he wrote one of the stories for this season, and they were so impressed that they asked him back for another one, because he writes the next story as well. And to my mind, because he also helped with City of Death, and he also writes Creature from the Pit and The Leisure Hive. And I can safely say, excluding his City of Death stuff, his better stuff is in this season than following seasons. So, like I said, it's Fiend City of Death, of course. And the good David Fisher stories continue with the next story, The Androids of Tara, which is another fun, entertaining story. This time set on the planet of Tara, but you could mistake it for being Earth. Don't worry. They just use a lot more location work in that story and this story now than in some other stories. I know Ribos Operation was a very set-based story. Pirate Planet had a lot of good location work though, and this story in Tara would work, and Power of Kroll would work in lots of great location work with the sets. And Armageddon Factor, I think, is a more set-based story again though. So anyway, that's it from me. Thank you for watching. Next time, The Androids of Tara. I'll see you guys then. Goodbye. Don't forget to click below to subscribe to the official Nicholas Payne Retro YouTube channel. On behalf of a goddess, Celtic goddess, in an attempt to sacrifice the Doctor at the end of part 2, during part 2 at least, which fails because the Doctor escapes thanks to Rutford. And it, unlike other stories like Deadly Assassin, it and the fourth. So that's pretty much why I can't really. Yeah, the rest of the story